Good afternoon, and welcome to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. We are a little bit late, but that's all right. We'll make up the time for that. I want to say a very special thank you to all my viewers on the radio. I made 7,000 viewers, over 7,000 viewers last week and the week before that. So our program is growing. And why I say our program, because without you guys, this program is nothing. So I'm very grateful to all of you. Also, I would like to say happy birthday to the man, DJ Fess, as you know that he is the man behind Island Zone Radio. I pray that God will continue to bless you in all that you do. And another thing, I want to say congrats to all the kids who just graduated in 2020. A special shout out to my own son, Kevin Rampersaud. He's now going to another school. Another important thing that we lost a very important person, Mother Arvin Apadu. His mother passed away recently and she buried yesterday. So on behalf of the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio, we would like to extend our deepest sympathy to you and your entire family. It's sad when someone passed away in our family who we love. One of the reasons why I brought, today we're going to talk about the grieving process, anxiety, and so on. And one of the reasons why we are talking about this is that, recently with the COVID virus, so many people lost their lives. So many people died. And apart from that, there's so much destruction all over the world and people divorcing. So we want to talk a little bit about the grieving process, what goes on, what affect that, how can we help in this. And another thing we want to talk about is anxiety. As we know, a lot of time we get anxious in life. Sometimes it's good, and we'll find out if it's good to have anxiety, and sometimes it's bad. I have a very special guest in studio today. I'm going to ask my DJ to play another song. And when we come back, I'll introduce my guest to you. He's in studio. Very brilliant young man. Let's go, DJ. That's right. You don't need no money. Let love rule the world.
Don't bring your checkbook.
Bring your broken hearts.
Cause it's members only tonight. Say you lost your woman. Say you lost your man. You got a lot of problems all in your life. Well, they throw in a party for the broken hearted, and it's members only tonight. Go tell mama, go tell daddy, red or yellow, black or white, throw in a party, all for the sad and lonely. It's members only tonight. Members only. It's a private party. Don't need no money to qualify. Don't bring your checkbook, bring your broken heart, 'cause it's members only tonight. Say you lost your woman, say you lost your man. You got a lot of problems in your life. They're throwing a party for the broken hearted, and it's members only tonight. Go tell mama.
That's right, that's right. Welcome to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. As you can see, we have a very special guest in studio. His name is Ash Ashwani. You know, Ash, welcome, my brother. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Let's see. You know, Ash, actually, we work together. He is a program coordinator in Harlem, New York, working with individual who has been diagnosed with mental health condition and who has also experienced chronic history of homelessness. Ash oversees his workers and make sure they do quality work at the job, and to make sure that they maintain the best health throughout different areas of their life. Having been born and raised, he's a Miami, Florida guy.
That's right.
But his family is from India, right?
Originally from India, yes.
That's right. And you know, the good thing about Ash is that he speaks 3 different languages: English, Spanish, and Hindi. Ash initially had interest in forensic psychology and graduated with a bachelor's degree from Florida State University in 2012 as a double major in psychology and criminology. He went on to pursue his study at Long Island University in Brooklyn campus in 2014, where Ash graduated with his Master's of Arts in Psychology along with an advanced certificate in mental health counseling. Because of this, Ash is eligible to apply to the New York State, where he can study, do his license for his mental health counseling, which will be a very good thing. With much education, topic around stress and anxiety, and I'm so glad that I get to see your bio, so I can bring you in the studio. We can talk so much more, where you study psychology and stress and anxiety. And I'm so glad too that you are involved in equality for all human beings and civil rights and affordable housing, which is excellent. It's good that we have that. Other interests of his are centered on access to adequate multidisciplinary health care. He has a passion for writing and understanding policies with drive to improve system in place that direct impact minorities, the LGBTQ community, the elderly, and the disabled population. In his downtime, he liked to listen to music, adventure, seeking vacation, and going for long walks, and with his dog, Ziggy. So I'm glad to have you here, Ash.
I'm really glad to be here as well.
So Ash, we're going to talk about, as we said earlier, that so many people passed away recently.
Yeah.
What's your take on grieving?
Well, it is very unfortunate that so many people have passed away during this pandemic. It's been so stressful and devastating, and the grieving process is something that a lot of people could benefit from learning about because it's very different for everybody. The grieving process is really about each individual going through it in their own way. Some people feel like they need to cry, and others wonder whether crying has to be a part of the process. But in actuality, crying is not necessarily something that always happens to people because we all grieve differently. And it's a long process, but there are different stages which we can talk about.
Yes.
And although some people like to think that these stages are for sure, they don't always happen in any particular order, or not everybody goes through every single stage.
Okay, good
so
to
it's
know.
not really the ideal way to look at it, but it's important to know about the stages because that's the best way that we can understand our emotions in order to help heal and really go through the grieving process properly.
That's right. So there is 5 basic process. So we can talk about denial. What makes one denial state?
So the stage of denial, one could say, is the first stage of the grieving process, where it's a very overwhelming, like a rush of a feeling when we first find out that we've lost someone or something, you know? And it's difficult because many people deal with that feeling very differently. Some people, as in the first stage, deny the idea that someone or something has been lost. So they really try to think of ways to, it's like a defense mechanism.
Right.
They'll say things like, this is not happening, this can't be possible, this isn't real. And that's the first stage typically, when a person just is in shock. So in order to help prevent feeling too overwhelmed, they kind of force themselves to believe that it's not real.
Let me ask you, we can talk about anger. We see so many times in our practice that people are angry when someone dies. Why?
Yes, anger is another stage of the grieving process, and it's an emotion that can come after some time, or it can come right away, depending on the person. Sometimes, as reality sets in, we're faced with the pain of our loss, and we could feel frustrated, we could feel helpless. It's sometimes those feelings can actually turn into anger, and that's when our lives can change in a different direction. And it's also natural to feel angry at the person that passed away, because sometimes people feel like they left me and now I'm here by myself, and it's not an easy feeling. So the feelings can change from anger from ourselves towards the other person as well.
Yes. And I see a lot of people angry, and they cry a lot because of anger. What would make one start to bargain that someone died?
Yes, bargaining basically happens as another stage, and it's when we tend to dwell on what could have, should have, would have happened. If only I did it this way, or if only I treated this person like this, maybe things could have been better, or our relationship could have been better. So it's a stage where some people might go through, of course not everybody, but we start to think about what we could have done, and we try to bargain with either a higher power or with ourselves about the whole entire situation and how we feel about it, whether we're at fault, whether we could have prevented anything, or whether anything could have gone differently.
Okay. Then we go on to depression. A lot of people love their loved ones, their mom, whether their dad, and they get so deep into this that they become depressed. What would you say about depression?
Depression is probably one of the more serious, well, not probably, but definitely is one of the more serious stages, because of the fact that if it becomes too serious, it can become a mental health condition. And sadness starts to set in as we begin to understand that we've lost somebody. And that's really when it starts to affect our lives as it sets in, because it can start to change our regular daily living activities, such as sleeping, eating. We might gain weight, we might lose weight, overeat, eat less. And when those changes start to happen, they're some of the symptoms of depression. So it's important to recognize that if, of course, we can feel depressed, but if it gets to the point where it's changing our regular lives and we feel like we're losing more and more control as time goes by, it's important to recognize that then it can become a mental health condition where we may need treatment, and sometimes even medication for short term could be recommended depending on the type of therapy or treatment that's being given.
And let's talk about the final stage, acceptance. You finally accept that your loved one has gone.
Yes. Acceptance would be the final stage, and that is when a person really does understand the reality of the situation and that it cannot be changed, and that it's time to just understand that even though we still feel sad, we can start moving forward and healing and moving again with our regular lives.
Ash, while I was reading through these things, can someone skip denial, skip anger, skip bargaining, and go straight to acceptance where someone died? You think that's possible?
Yes, that actually is very possible, because people don't go through all the stages, as I mentioned earlier. So we can go through just a couple of them, or sometimes people will skip from one to the other, and sometimes we can even go back and forth.
Right.
Because when we lose someone, depending on the relationship or the person, there can be so many memories that we experience. You know, there's anniversary dates, there's songs that can bring back memories, pictures, certain days, foods. And when those things come back to us, they can happen years later, and it's also part of the grieving process. So there's really no time limit to the process since it's different for everybody. But we can definitely go through those stages over and over, back and forth. And some people are able to just move straight to acceptance. And that also depends on the nature and the quality of the relationship that they had with the person. Because if it was somebody who wasn't so close to you, then of course you wouldn't grieve as deeply or as long than it, if it was somebody that was very close to you.
Yeah. Also, if someone is older and they're sick, you would want them to, you might think that the best thing to do is they die, right?
Right.
When in the nursing home, they on a ventilator and so on, you would say, the best thing. Some of the things that could affect that. What do you think about it? There's your personality, your age.
There's definitely a lot of factors. Personality is one, age is another, that determine whether and how we deal with the grieving process. Each individual is so different that with experience we learn more things and how to deal with different situations. And of course, depending on how we understand our own emotions, because as soon as we can realize what the reasons are for why we feel the way we feel, then we can seek support if we need it, so we can heal faster and better.
That's right. And, it's, to me, that it all depends on the relationship you have with that individual. If you're very close with them, you probably will take, like you said, take longer to grieve. And it will be more hurtful for them. So I'm going to ask my DJ to get a song ready for us. And when we come back, we will be continuing the conversation. Some of the things that we can do to help those who are grieving, right?
That sounds great.
Let's go. Yes.
Right, thank you.
Anybody see my trial, grief alright? Why, Lord? I was badly beaten, found by loved ones, battered by an irate husband, searching for a man that wasn't I. When we reach the court, we're gone inside. The hand of justice shall preside over this case. The trial shall begin. Your Honor, I was inside because minding I own business. Your Honor, it was a complete stranger causing these disturbances. He claims me touching my wife, which is a wicked and awful life. Me two hand them was occupied. My shirt in the left and my pants in my right. My hand them was occupied. My shirt in the left and my pants in my right. Dear Judge, can this court accept my story from my heart? Why, Judge? If by chance you don't believe this tale, ask him why she will not fail to agree. I was a better man than he. Just in case she refused to answer, ask the maid downstairs, Agatha, she'll only be glad to testify for me. I tell him, Your Honor, I was inside because minding I own business. Your Honor, it was a complete stranger causing these disturbances. He claims me touching my wife, which is a wicked and awful life. The two hand them was occupied. My shirt in the left and the pants in the right. My hand them was occupied. My shirt in the left and the pants in the right.
Islands. Specifically, I man do not understand what the man trying to say. Roots forward up.
Dear Papa, As you lock me in this prison, pray for I. Please, Papa, please don't leave me here to wonder why the court has made this blunder. Grab me for a crime that wasn't clear. Corporal, when you going to send me dinner, send your mother or your sister. One more day of this I cannot bear. Hear me now, Your Honor. I was inside the closet, minding I own business, Your Honor. It was a complete stranger causing these disturbances and claims that they touching my wife, which was a wicked and a full lie. Me and them was occupied. Me shirt to the left and me pants to the right. Me hand them was occupied. Me shirt to the left and me pants to the right.
Welcome back to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. Guess what? I forgot to say hello to all my viewers. So let's go. We have a lot. John from Suriname. John Namat. Rajiv Nandalal, thank you very much for tuning in. Ali Fazia, thank you for watching. And the man selector from Canada. He's a DJ in Canada. He's always an action guy. We have Nayan Chunilal watching from Guyana. Zamina Razak Ali, thank you for tuning in. Chandra D. Singh watching from Canada. My good friend Rajan Narayan, thank you, my brother, for tuning in. Golin Kushira, thank you very much for watching. Mary Prasad, thank you, she's watching from Queens. My good friend Narayan Ramrup, thank you, my brother, for watching. And Ryan Jeffrey, thank you very much for watching. Again, today is DJ Fest birthday, so I want to say happy birthday. May God continue to bless you. A good friend of mine, Bibi Ahmad, watching from Guyana. She is a counselor too and is doing so much for domestic violence and suicide and so many other things. Nirwati Singh watching, thank you very much. Let's see, Shabana Aziz, thank you very much for watching. Christina Prasad, thank you for watching. She's always, when I was sick, she was always being supportive to me, always telling me what's good for me to do and so on. So, you know, having people like them on your side, it's a beautiful thing. Bibi Amina, she is in studio. Nadira watching. Let's see who else. Sarita Prasad, thank you. Desiree Carlette, thank you. Liz Paduman watching all the way from Guyana. Farida Razak, thank you very much. My sister watching all the way from Canada. Anita Ish Daulat Ram. Vita Danraj, thank you. John again. Liz watching. Miss Lena watching all the way from Florida. Thank you very much for watching, my dear. Jamil Mohammed, thank you for watching. My other good friend all the way from Derry in England. Bakadine, Duncan Springer. You know, she was a registered nurse back in Guyana. Very nice young lady. Let's see who we have here. Jamir is saying, blessed Sunday to all. Thank you very much. My good friend Ram Hiralal watching from Canada. Elizabeth Lowe is watching. Anand Siram, thank you very much. Bibi Amat say, great discussion. Yes, you know, we have to bring on these discussions. We have so many people are suffering and they don't know exactly what to do. And my very good friend who is dear to me, Dr. Veronica Jackson-Wiltshire, thank you very much for watching. She was very good to me during my time when I was down. And like I said, it's good to have people like them around. Kamla Prasad Balram, thank you very much. Maureen Ramcharan, thank you very much. Let's see. Susan Balkaran Munisar watching from Connecticut. Maureen said good evening to both of us here. Neela Pawaru, a very another beautiful young lady, a good soul who is always fighting for the human being, for us to have a better life. Lalita Tiburini, thank you very much for watching. That's a new name. Thank you. Bibi Hassan, watching all the way from Guyana. Thank you guys for watching the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio in New York. So what you want to talk about now? What can you advise someone who is going through a grieving process?
Well, I would definitely say that, as I had mentioned before, since it's a process that's different for everybody, it's important to understand that it takes time and to understand that we can accept our feelings by knowing that it's going to be a process and understanding that even though it may be difficult, we can get through it. Another thing that's also important is actually to talk to others, spending time with friends, with family, and not isolating ourselves, because that's one thing that is part of a sign of depression as well, when we tend to isolate or not engage in regular activities that we normally used to because we're feeling so depressed or sad. Another thing that's very important is to just take care of ourselves, eating regularly and healthy, exercising regularly, and just taking enough care of ourselves where we're getting enough sleep as well. Returning to our regular daily activities, such as hobbies that we enjoyed and regular pleasures of life, is important, because if we start to lose that pleasure that we once had in past things, then that's another indication of depression or another symptom, and that's one way we can recognize that we might be sinking into that depression or that stage. And of course, joining a support group is another thing that we can do, just because we can identify with other people or relate to other people who have been through similar situations.
And that's a good thing to do, to talk to other people who have experienced the same thing in life. How do you cope, after you lost someone?
Well, grieving doesn't just magically end at any certain point, so it's important to know that reminders can come at any time, whether it's right away after the loss, years later, and those reminders can actually be healthy for us if we look at them as positive memories instead of as painful memories. And we might be faced with grief over our losses again and again throughout our lives, but as long as we realize that our feelings will return back to normal, it's a great way to stay strong and remain positive.
Yeah, and I know that, especially if you hear, when I hear an old-time song, I think back of my parents. But, they said with time, you get better. And I think that's what happened with me. So I would encourage people, take your time, get some counseling, do what you have to do. The other thing is that if you know that reminders, when you get reminder of this, and it's a bad day for you, would you encourage them to go out and meet with family on the day where they're going to be sad and so on? What do you think? Do a cookout or so on?
Actually, it is a good idea to spend time with other loved ones, because when we're alone, we can get more negative thoughts, and sometimes people can turn to other unhealthy behaviors such as drugs, alcohol, and even overeating or doing other activities that are not healthy, such as indulging in risky behaviors and other things like that, because they're managing and coping with that pain and that difficulty. So it's better to spend time with people if possible, especially those that we care about, so we can sort of distract ourselves or keep ourselves busy rather than dwelling in the pain.
That's right. And what's some of the signs and symptoms that we will be watching out for?
Well, definitely during anniversaries, we might experience very intense emotions and reactions. And other signs include anger, crying, major anxiety, feeling fatigued or very exhausted, feeling lonely, guilty, and just general sadness and trouble sleeping as well.
Okay, so we'll ask our DJ, while we catch our breath, to come back with another song, and after that we'll continue our discussion. You ready, DJ? Let's go.
The woman was my wife. Sat down so when I had a drink, and I watched them kiss again. As my mind raced on, my heart came down. I gently called her name. Margie, who's watching the baby?
Welcome back to the Ken Rampersaud Show on Island Zone Radio, and we'll continue our discussion. I'm talking to here with Ash. Ash and I work at the same place. I'm the program nurse. He's a program coordinator. He see things run properly on a 24-hour basis. He very smart guy. He's study anxiety, stress, and so on. Probably sometime we come back and talk about stress another time, or whatever topic you want to talk about. So, Ash, if you see someone, a lot of time we go to places and we see people crying, and we don't know, but we always say, stop crying, don't cry. What's to do if you see someone crying?
Well, sometimes one of the best things we can do when someone is crying is just to allow them to let it out. Because sometimes we feel like we have to say something, or we feel pressured that we need to make things better for them. But that's not always true, because when someone's going through very serious sadness or emotion, they may not be able to understand or accept anything that someone is telling them, especially if we try to use a story that was similar, like that we dealt with, or a similar experience that we went through. Because the most important thing to remember when someone is grieving or very sad about losing something is that we'll never understand exactly what they're going through. Even though we might have gone through a similar situation, if we try to act like we know exactly what's going on, it can trigger the person and make them feel like we don't actually understand. So sometimes silence is one of the best things we can do, and just be the shoulder for someone to cry on.
That's right. And it is so important to just be present with them there.
Yes, offering your presence is very important.
That's right. And you just don't tell them, listen, stop crying, don't cry, don't worry about this, let them cry. And another thing, we empathize with them. And when we talk about empathize, what empathize really mean, Ash?
So empathizing in the easiest way means just putting ourselves in someone else's shoes. So even though we may have not experienced something at the same level that someone else has, if we just understand that that person is going through something difficult, then that makes it easier for us to be supportive and know that they're just going through their pain and that they'll be able to heal soon. And so it's important to realize that sometimes by us sharing our own experiences, it may not be very helpful, because we want to let that person go through what they're going through and just be supportive during that time.
Right. Another thing, sometimes we go and we don't know what to say. In that instance, what we do?
Well, there is definitely a fear of saying the wrong thing.
Right.
Yeah, and some people, distance themselves until things return to normal, and that can ruin their relationships along the way, because they kind of also isolate themselves, as we said before.
Right.
And so sometimes it's just really, really important to remember that even though some words of compassion can be helpful, silence is also very helpful.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to put. We don't have to go there and babble our mouth all the time like we know it all. We can go there and just stay silent, and that's probably could be just good enough. Because sometimes people like to know that they have someone that they can depend on. And you can say, we can say good words like, I am so sorry that you have lost someone.
Right.
Know that I'm right here for you. If you need me, I'll be right here. Emotional comfort.
Definitely.
So, as we know, both of us know, the grieving process, it takes time, and it takes stages. So we want people to know that, and to understand. As friends, we must understand that, we can't rush the grieving process.
Right.
It's not an easy thing. Another thing, what you want to encourage people to do,
definitely let them talk.
Right.
Yeah, because if we are talking too much, then sometimes that can be a problem, because it's not about us, it's about that person who's dealing with the situation. So when a person wants to talk, listening is very important too.
Right.
Because we want to be active listeners, so we can really be able to empathize and put ourselves in that person's place.
Right.
To better understand their experience. Because just like I said before, we all go through our experiences differently.
Absolutely.
And so it's very important to consider that when we're with somebody else, because then it kind of comes off as selfish if it's like, oh, the person that I was with also passed away, or this family member of mine also passed away, because then it just makes, it's almost like pulling the rug underneath the person and not allowing them to fully heal and just putting it onto ourselves. So active listening and sometimes allowing a person to just let it out and just say what they need to say. And there's another thing about that too, because some people have said that there's, an ugly cry. And, some people don't look very nice when they cry.
Right.
And, it's important to also remember that, if you're with someone that you care about and they need to let their emotions out and they don't look great, well, it's part of the process too. We can't always look wonderful when we're crying. Some people actually do have a very funny or awkward look when they're crying, and they should be comfortable enough with that person to let it all out and not be ashamed of how they look when they cry, because that's something that, as funny as it may sound in the moment, it's really important, because when a person doesn't feel comfortable to cry in front of someone else, then it's not really helpful to be in their presence, and that's not really offering very good presence, of course.
What I was going to tell you is that, like me, if I go and I see someone crying, I start to cry myself. We should be laughing, but I'm like a big baby. I start to cry too. So if you cry, it's okay. Even if you hug each other and just cry, let them cry and let them let out all that emotions, and it feels good sometime when you cry. Another thing that when we go to someone's house and you see, it's a disarray and they have a death, do you encourage them to help clean or do that?
Yeah, actually, that's a very nice thing to do. When someone goes through such a serious situation or loss, when we offer different ways of help, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
Offering to cook or clean around the house, stopping by, bringing meals, or just checking on the person, making sure that they're cooking or eating properly is a great way to show concern. And sometimes we can even offer donations, if they need arrangements for funeral purposes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it in just a minute. Yeah, so you think it's a good idea that they could help tidy up and straighten out the place and so on, right?
Yeah, offering help with chores and regular activities is a very big thing, because when a person is feeling very down, it's difficult to get up and do the things that we normally do. And so just being supportive to help with those basic tasks is a great thing for a person that's coping.
And another thing that, someone got a message that, somebody died, you can offer them you can make 1-2 calls and so on, right?
Yes, definitely.
It's nothing wrong with that. But, one thing I always say, always get permission before you do go and do things, right? So,
that's true.
Yeah, just don't go and say, I'm going to start cleaning up the people place and all these things. But, it's a good idea to get some permission before you do things.
Of course.
A lot of times that people, people are struggling. You and I know, because we work with people sometime and we see it's not easy, or someone come ask some donation. As a friend, do you think it's appropriate to go and ask to help with family, the arrangement for the funeral and so on? Or now I see a new thing coming up where you set up a GoFundMe for your friend. Yeah. I see a lot of people do that. What do you think?
I think it's a very nice gesture, and some people may feel uncomfortable accepting money or accepting any type of payments towards anything. But if we do it in a discreet way where we're not making it too obvious, and it's more like just handing somebody an envelope with some money in it, or paying off some balance that they owe.
Yeah, yes.
It's a nice feeling, and it goes a long way as well, because it takes the pressure off the person from having to say, no, I don't need any help, or no, thank you, I appreciate it. But by us just doing it in a way where it's less intense and less noticeable, makes it easy for the person to just accept the help and be very appreciative about it.
That's right. So, that's a good conversation there. We're going to ask our DJ to come back and play another nice song for us. We always want to play some nice song for our viewers,
Great music.
Yes. Let's see. I see we have, in the meantime, he's getting ready. I see we have Sukde Mangal. She said, I think the hard time because we could not say goodbye with our family members, not seeing them how they want cope with this. It's totally, it's a sad thing, especially, with this COVID. A lot of people didn't get to say goodbye to their family. And I think we all do need some kind of closure, right?
That's definitely true, because one of the hardest things to deal with is an unexpected loss. And that was one thing I wanted to mention earlier, is that when someone passes away, it really depends on the time that they pass away, how old the person was, the type of relationship we had with them, and how much time we really had to prepare for their passing. Because when it's something so unexpected, it could be a lot more hurtful, and it can last a lot longer. Whereas if somebody was in the hospital and they were very sick for a long time, and we already knew that they were not doing well and they were declining, you know, sometimes you have more time to prepare for the passing.
Right.
And other times it's very sudden, which can make it so much harder. And with this pandemic and the virus, so many people suddenly passed so quickly, and it's been very, very traumatic for a lot of individuals. And my heart really goes out to all of them. And I hope that if anybody that's listening has gone through that experience and lost somebody through this tragedy that's happened in this year, hopefully some of these ways and coping mechanisms will help.
Yes, and that's why I'm doing this show today, so that we can help someone, you know. So let's go. Let me read one, two comments. Sugdeo Mangal, I think it's hard time because we could not say goodbye. Yes, and thank you very much, Sugdeo Mangal. Always been kind with her comments. My good friend Roxanne Walker she's from Florida. You know, my guest actually, Roxanne, he is from Miami, Florida.
That's right.
Yeah. And Liz says, love and kindness goes a long way, especially when a person is grieving. My sister 5 months ago to cancer. Well, I'm very sorry to hear this. Let's see who else we have here. John Namat from Suriname, thank you very much. Stay silent can also be helpful than showing compassion. Desiree Corlett says, interesting. Let's go. We have Arjun Madre. Thank you, my friend, for tuning in on the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. And yes, it's always good to be kind to each other. And then we have the Chutney Queen. You have to probably see her perform one day. Miss Fiona sing. Yeah, she's one of our Guyanese artists, and she can rock the stage.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
When I say she could rock, she could sing and dance too. So that's a good thing. Yes.
Always a good thing.
And she, you know, even she called me when I texted me when I was sick. So it's good to have you on to Miss Fiona. Thank you very much. Let's see who else we have. Let's go for the music.
One of
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. You know, today we have a very special guest, Ash. You know, he works in Harlem. Both of us work together. I'm the program nurse. He's the program coordinator. He makes sure that the work get done in a 24-hour basis. He supervises most of the staff there at our job. He makes sure that the patient get what they deserve. And what I admire about him too is that he's an advocate for so many things. And I hope that you continue to be an advocate. You have a long life ahead of you. He advocates for the poor, the homeless, the addicted, the underserved, and you name it. So we will have a lot of discussion probably in next show coming up. I know that you have, Ash, a couple more things that you want to talk about. The myths of grieving. What's that?
Well, actually, the myths of anxiety I wanted to mention.
Oh, anxiety?
Right, because anxiety is something that a lot of people, of course, go through on a daily basis, and it's definitely part of the grieving process, of course. Mm-hmm. But some of those myths that people feel are that anxiety isn't a real illness, and some people aren't aware that, in fact, generalized anxiety disorder is in the DSM, which is a mental health condition that a mental health provider can diagnose someone with. So anxiety, if it becomes serious enough, in other words, can become a very serious mental health condition that interferes with our lives. And some people who really experience this actually go through tightness in their chest, feelings like they want to die or like they're losing control, or inability to sleep for nights endlessly. And that's one of the more serious consequences to the disorder.
But the thing is that so many times we feel anxious in life. You anxious coming to the show first time you're coming on the radio. I'm sure you were anxious a little bit, a little bit nervous. So we all do go through these things in life. Yes. So let me ask you, when is it a problem really that you should really seek any help about anxiety? And we'll talk about some of the things that you can do really to help when you're anxious.
Yes, definitely. If we start to feel that we are losing our control over our daily lives, mm-hmm. and our personal lives or our work lives or our social lives are being interrupted, at home, in the family, at work, school. If something is coming in the way so strongly, then we can start to recognize that if there's patterns. In the DSM, it's for 6 months. A person has to meet certain criteria for that amount of time.
6 months and common diagnosis.
They have to have at least 3 symptoms.
Correct, you're right.
That they're dealing with in that time in order to be diagnosed with depression. Now, there's other criteria, of course, for every disorder, mm-hmm. but another myth about anxiety that I wanted to talk about is that people tend to think that people should avoid stressful situations if they have anxiety, mm-hmm. which is not true. Because if you avoid a stressful situation, then it can only trigger a more stressful situation in the mm-hmm. future, mm-hmm. because we can't avoid life, and life is full of stressful situations.
Absolutely.
So one myth that people believe is that we should stay away from them if we have anxiety, but that's actually not true, because the more we face our fears and the more we learn how to cope with them effectively, the stronger we can become in dealing with them whenever they come up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, the bad thing is that, a lot of people sometimes they go through anxiety and they think it's normal, that they shouldn't get help for that anxiety. And what would you encourage someone to do in that phase?
Well, it's definitely a natural feeling to think that I can get through this on my own, or I don't need help from anybody, I'm fine, or I don't need any medication because I don't want to get addicted to anything. But it's important to remember that if we feel that our lives are being disrupted in any ways, or we go through over 6 months of time feeling certain symptoms of sadness, loss of exercise or weight gain, weight loss, and changes in our appetite, any types of feelings of going through panic attacks especially, mm-hmm. if that continues to persist, then we should consider seeking support from a mental health provider. Because it's difficult, but if we're able to recognize that these things are happening, then we're able to seek the right support for ourselves.
And do you recommend that people they go see their doctor? And when you go to the doctor, what do you really tell them? And what treatment you have? You could get psychotherapy, or you can get medication. How they really do it?
Well, so when we first go to a mental health provider, they'll conduct an assessment of how we're doing, how we're feeling, and how we appear, and everything that we present to them will all go into that assessment so that it can be determined whether it's serious enough to warrant medication. Because a lot of times people feel that therapy is, over medication, and there's an idea of the medication model which people go against, where they feel that therapy is more effective and should be used as a first resort rather than using medication. And so if therapy doesn't work, then we can move on to seeing low doses of medication and how they work. But it all depends on the individual and the circumstances and how serious the condition of their mental health is, of course. But we, of course, really want to avoid taking any medication if we can benefit fully from therapy.
Can someone be on medication and be in therapy at the same time?
Yes. Some people have very serious conditions. Some people, such as those individuals who have been diagnosed with schizophrenia and other brain disorders that they may not have full control over, and need medication to balance those chemicals and those imbalances in their brains and in their bodies. So it's important to also remember that both are sometimes needed, but if we can avoid medication, and just do therapy, it's very, very powerful.
Let me ask you, and I want to bring up this a while back since we were talking, and I know that you, I'm going to ask our DJ to get a song ready while we talk about this. I know you have a pet dog.
Yes.
Do you think that the pet dog, it helps in any of anxiety or grief or anything? Do you think they play an important part in that?
Actually, yeah, pet therapy is a thing, and I feel it can be very beneficial for people who are animal lovers and really do, have pets and enjoy that, because it's something that can bring us pleasure. And, many people feel that their pets are like their children or like their family. And so just like spending time with our loved ones, having a pet can very much be therapeutic and very helpful in any situation that can be stressful.
Do you have your dog here in New York? It's in Florida.
He actually goes back from Miami, Florida, and to New York.
Oh,
so
really?
Sometimes he's with my parents over there in Florida, and then sometimes he'll come and stay here with my sisters. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So we kind of take turns, and it's nice because we get to share the responsibilities. So sometimes everybody gets a break from the walking and the bathing, but he's been our little baby for almost 14 years now.
Really? That's a long time.
He's an old man, but he acts like a baby.
Oh, God, I have to fight my wife to get a dog. Anyway, so let's go for a nice song. One of you guys' favorite song.
I bet you didn't know what's gonna happen here. Look at it, karma, I'm crazy. Oh my
बिट्टू चलना है वही मैं तेरे पीछे पीछे चला पीछे चलना तेरी सकती नहीं मैं भी सकता नहीं कोई दूसरी मैं शर्ता भी रखता नहीं तेरे बातों मेरा 2, 1 सचिया मोहब्बत दे वही किते और नहीं मिलना भी तू चलना आई मैं तेरे पीछे पीछे चलना पीछे चलना माही रे ओ माही Boasty Call part I'm a bass heavy Man a half from the man a boasty Bring a camera rhythm like a touch Boasty, house on the coast My music so loud you can't hear me Some boys them can't test me I'm a magical girl Gucci tere yaara mainu gandhi Aankhon se aankhon wali gal gandhi
धड़कन दिल दिए धन पहचाने तू मेरा है मैं हूँ तेरी रब दिए जाने
पूरे सकती नहीं मेरा सकता नहीं तेरे बिन यार और जीते सकता नहीं क्या तेरे बाँचो मेरा Everybody रंग तेरा चढ़ना के हुर कोई रंग नहीं चढ़ना सचिया मोहब्बत दे वही किते और नहीं मिलना हो मही दे Boasty, all part of my base heavy. Man a half from the man a boasty. Bring a camera rhythm like a touch you. Boasty, house on the coast street. My music so loud you can't hear me. Some boys them can't test me. I'm a magical girl. Mahi mainu chahiyo na ke tere din mein dil nahi lagena. Jitte bitti chalna hai mahi main tere piche piche chalna. Piche chalna. सकती नहीं मैं जी सकता नहीं कोई दूसरी मैं शरता भी रखता नहीं क्या तेरे बाँचो मेरा सचिया मोहब्बत दे वही किते और नहीं मिलना किते भी तू चलना पीछे पीछे चलना पीछे चलना माही दे माही boasty all part on the base heavy man a half from the man a boasty bring a camera rhythm like a touch you boasty house on the coast street my music so loud you can't hear me some boys them can't test me I'm on a magical journey.
Anna B, Ravi B, Nisha B, Risharam, Carmen, crazy.
Welcome back to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. So let's hear what some of you guys are thinking. You can always make a comment in the shout box. Bibi Rahman said that she's enjoying the music. I always love this song, and I know it's good. It's a good song. That's why I asked the DJ to play the song. Eileen Sukram, yes, I think this is Rajiv, good friend from Florida. Thank you very much for watching. Eileen says, "Hi Rajiv, how are you? Good afternoon, everyone from Florida." Let's see. We have Bibi says, "So true. I moved to California, and my son has a dog, Scooby, and he is my company." Wow, that's nice. People don't realize. Again, we have the beautiful Fiona Singh. As I said, our chutney queen from Guyana. Not only the Indians from India could sing, you know. We have some Guyanese Indian could.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Yes, yes.
Some great music, great singers also.
Yeah, we got some good dances too.
Oh yeah.
I have to introduce you. I have to let you watch one of our Guyanese dancers. Two of our Guyanese male dancers. Mm-hmm. They could really shake it.
Oh, we have. Wow.
Yeah. Probably, you know what, I should bring you in one day when we have a big show.
Yeah,
with our Guyanese
nice.
Indian, you know, how they do their thing.
Yeah, I'm sure you have lots of parties you must be going to.
Well, now I'm going to party. I'm not a party guy, but I go now to support really because of the show and so on, you know.
Right.
We have Sherry Subaran. Thank you for tuning in. John said, too much stress, anxiety, depression, fear, sadness, or loss of appetite is one individual is genetically determined. Let's see, we have Robert Ramp, my good friend. Thank you very much for watching. Robert, I forget to change the screen. Let's see who we have. Lena says probably she's mentally, physically, emotionally affected by some things really bad. Red Sonia, thank you very much for watching. Red Sonia. Shalini Ramutar, thank you very much. She's from my village in Lenera on the west coast of Demerara in Guyana. Let's see. I always like to say hello to our viewers. That's an important thing we have to do. I see we have Radhika Jaikaran is watching. Thank you very much for watching the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. Let's see. Yes, probably we can talk a little bit, or when we come back, we could talk about, because Sugdeo says that it was tough for so many people who didn't get to say goodbye to their family, and I know we have someone else is watching that didn't get to say goodbye to their family. So let's talk. What are some of the strategies, the coping strategies that someone could do, the things that they could embrace their own health? What's your take?
It definitely is very sad that so many people have lost all their loved ones during this pandemic, and so suddenly. And to cope with it that quickly is all the more harder. But some strategies that we can, really use are just like the old saying, taking deep breaths. It really, really helps, because it helps lower our heart rate, and it also helps lower our blood pressure. So when we're able to control our breathing, it's a big, big tactic that we can use. And I actually interned at a biofeedback clinic, which is basically a clinic where you can learn how to control your own stress and anxiety when you're in a stressful situation. And they teach you different tricks, such as how to control your breathing, how to use meditative practices such as imagery and imagining that you're in a special place or in a moment of time where you feel at peace and you feel relaxed, and you're able to actually see that your heart rate is getting lower.
Wow.
And you can feel that your skin temperature is getting warmer, which means you're less nervous or less anxious. And this clinic will show you that by controlling your breathing and by managing your stress, you can actually control all of these physiological symptoms, such as sweating, feeling nauseous, getting very nervous or having a fast heart rate. These are all bodily symptoms that we can actually control if we learn how to do it. And in that clinic, I was able to teach people how to control their breathing and how to use these practices, and they ended up being able to use them in their real life situations. And it's a way of knowing that we can actually be in control of the way we feel as long as we're aware of how to do it.
And that's a good thing you say that, because I remember when I had the COVID-19 and I was experiencing short of breath, I would stand up, get up from the bed, and I would stand in the room, and I'll try to monitor my own breathing and take deep. Despite I was short of breath, I would take in some deep breath, and I'll hold it for a little bit and try to control how I breathe. And during that time, I was thinking, Lord, do I call 911 next or whatever it is? But I was being positive and optimistic that controlling my breathing and how I breathe in and how I breathe out and how I can hold it in would help me. And thank God I did not have to go to the hospital. Also, we know that eating a balanced diet is so important in so many things that we talk about. What's your go on that?
Definitely a big part of our coping strategies is our diets and the way that we take care of ourselves. It's so easy to make microwavable foods.
Right.
And it's very easy to just open up a can of something and eat that. And of course, when we're not feeling the best, we might take the easy routes,
right,
which may not be the healthiest routes. And that's why it's important to realize that eating well-balanced meals, not skipping any meals, and keeping these things in mind are important as well as limiting things like alcohol and caffeine, because these substances can make us feel temporarily better, but in the long run, they can actually cause a lot of damage to our bodies. They can cause addiction, and they can even worsen our feelings of depression or anxiety over time.
And I'm glad that you say that, Ash, because guess what? A lot of people in life think that because you're stressed out, you go drink some alcohol and you go and take some drugs, it's going to help you in life. But the thing is that when you wake up back, you end up right where you started. Having problems. Also, they said to count with your breathing, count 1 to 10 or 20, right?
Breathing, actually going back to that, is a very big thing I wanted to mention, that we don't really pay attention to our every breath because it's so natural and happens every second that,
right.
we start to forget that we can actually be in control of how much oxygen we're taking into our lungs. And it seems as if most people are only taking in about 30% of the oxygen that they should be, which means 70% more can be taken in, which means we're not really fully breathing with every breath that we take. But if we notice that we can take deeper breaths with each one, it starts to increase the oxygen flow and really help calm the body down and help your blood flow as well. But you have to be conscious enough to remember that take deeper breaths, you know, and do it as a regular practice so that you get into the habit of it. And when you realize that you're in control of that, your body just naturally feels calmer and you realize that you are in control.
Yeah, another thing, it's always said, do your best. We are not perfect.
True. Very true. We are not. And it's so important to remember that, you know, we can't always change things. We can't control situations every time. So we have to be able to accept that. And sometimes if we put our stress into perspective and say, is it really that bad? You know, we can recognize that not only can things be worse, but we can be grateful for all the good things in our lives as well. And sometimes we tend to focus on those negative ones. But if we're able to switch the flip and say, you know, there's so many positive things in my life, then you actually are in control that way because you're choosing to look at that side instead.
Yes. Another thing is that, you know, you see me always laughing at work and having that positive energy.
Yes, which I love. Everybody loves that at work about you.
Thank you. And that's one thing I always do. I'm always making them laugh and making jokes and so on at work. We end up dancing sometimes. I don't know if you ever see me dance myself. Yeah, Shamira and me, we always dancing. So, you know, it's always good. And having a good humor goes a far way, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Laughing and humor is something that every human being can enjoy, can benefit from, and deserves. And it really helps to include that in any situation. You know, even now when we're talking, it's like any jokes can lighten up things. And so when we're feeling down or when we're feeling sad, it can be a huge, huge help as well. And only some people have the ability, because some of us try to be funny, but we can't. But even just trying is good because, you know, we can use it in workplaces, we can use it at school, at home, and it just only helps for the most part. Unless something is a little bit too touchy and it isn't the appropriate time, we have to be aware of that as well. But, you know, without your humor in the workplace, I don't know what we'd do.
You know, Ash always tell me, that he always tell me, you know what, I am very lucky because my boss loves me.
It's true.
Always tell me that. So, you know, and I always believe that no matter what, and when I read your resume today, I was smiling because, you know, I pull you aside sometimes and I try to advise you to, you know, how to, you know, not behave, but to make the day go by. And I didn't know you had all this credential anyway. So I'm like, why I'm telling this guy to, you know, smile and take it easy, you know. But no matter how much...
You really taught me so much, though.
Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, I hope that, you know, wherever you go, that you will take those positive energy with you, you know what I mean? And that goes to show that, you know, you can influence anyone, no matter whatever you are or no matter what you do. Also, maintaining a positive attitude goes a far way. And as a supervisor there, you get to observe people, how they work, and you see who have a good attitude and who doesn't have a good attitude, who you can talk to because you supervise quite a few younger people than yourself. How do you take that? What's your advice? As someone who is in a managerial position, what's your take on people? How would you like to see in someone?
That's a good question. You know, I really like to let people know that I don't want to be that type of boss that is do as I say, not as I do. You know, I'm someone that likes to let people know that I'm here to help. And we're all in this together. You know, we're a team and we're here to help other people. So why not just do it together and help each other make it easier? Because we can either make it harder for ourselves or we can make it easier. And of course, why not choose the easy way? And I think that things like humor and making it fun in the workplace is important. Obviously not going too overboard because we have work to do, but making it a comfortable atmosphere where people don't feel like they're dreading to go to work. They don't feel like they're pressured or that they're, you know, expected to perform at a continuous, in a continuous way consistently, It's more about just knowing that you're there, you're working and doing your best, and you're appreciated. And as long as employees feel that way, I think that would make them want to work harder, because when you feel that your boss or your company appreciates you and values the work that you do, then naturally you would want to work even more and do more for that company because they care about you, so you in turn would care about them. But I feel like as a supervisor, if you show that you just want your team or your staff to do exactly what you want, and you're this big bad boss that makes all these rules, it makes them uncomfortable and not really have a good relationship, so they may not work as hard and may not produce as effectively as they would if you were a better quality supervisor and more respectable. Because at the end of the day, no matter what a person's title is, we all deserve to be treated fairly, respectfully, and nicely. And I think that's really what makes a team really blend and mesh well.
Well, that is so profound, Ash, because you know what, all your staff loves you and the patients love you too. So that's a good thing.
Hope so.
Yes, they do. The other thing is that I think that doing volunteer work or getting involved in community work it's good. Doing good, it helps, right?
Definitely. I mean, doing good in any community, volunteering, and just taking your time out to give to others who are in need is not only a great thing for the people that you're doing it for, but it's a nice feeling for ourselves to know that we're helping out and doing good deeds. And that was one thing that I remembered about the grieving process when we were talking about earlier, is that sometimes people will, donate or make a fund in that person's name or create a charity in a loved one's name who had passed away.
That's a good thing. We want to talk about that.
Yeah, because that's like also another idea that we can do to, keep our memories positive and to help with coping with the lost one is, creating some sort of charity or any kind of donation where we are giving towards something in need or a good cause, and it's in memory of someone that we loved and lost, so it makes it more special when we're able to do that, and then it's helping other people as well.
We're going to ask our DJs to get ready, and we'll talk about one more topic on this area. Talk to someone. Ash, it is so important to have someone that you can trust and confide and you can talk to, right?
Absolutely, and it's not easy to find that person because sometimes it's a process to, get comfortable with someone.
That's true. So our DJ is going to get a song ready, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some fitness tip on how to help you live a better life.
Yep.
Right?
That sounds
Let's
great.
go, DJ. And our DJ today is Mr. Selector Bolt. He's my right hand and playing one of my favorite songs now. She's from Guyana too. Welcome back to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. Again, I would like to take this opportunity to wish the man, DJ Fest, happy birthday. May God bless you. Don't get too drunk tonight. I hope your wife have something very special for you tonight. Okay? So, you know, we're going to talk about how do we stay healthy and manage stress when you are prone to anxiety. What are some of the things that you can do?
So, even though I'm in need of losing some weight myself, fitness and exercise and keeping a healthy regimen is always important for anybody. And it's definitely a great way to not only deal with stress, but to help reduce anxiety as well. Some people have their own goals on how they want to look, and some people want to be muscular, some people just want to be toned, and other people want to reach a certain weight. But no matter what a person's goals are, it's important to remember that any type of activity or regular exercise is healthy and beneficial in different ways, and it's all about, you know, what's comfortable for ourselves. So setting small goals is a really great thing, because sometimes people want to either lose a certain amount of weight in a certain amount of time, or they want to achieve something too quickly than is possible. And when we realize that instead of saying I want to do this in 1 month, maybe we can say I want to do this in 3 months.
Yes,
You know, it helps to not set ourselves up for failure or for disappointment.
Also, I see distract yourself. You can watch TV, read a book, whatever you think.
Yeah, distracting yourself is another coping strategy as well. Watching TV, reading, other activities to get your mind off of stress definitely helps. But in terms of fitness, really it's all about our own bodies and what we can handle. And it's a good idea to figure out what we can tolerate when it comes to exercise and not overdo anything, and try to stick to something consistent so that we can slowly increase, and, you know, as we build tolerance to whatever activity it is we're doing, whether it's running or sports, you know, give ourselves that time to get better at it and allow that that process to happen naturally, so it's as healthy as it can be.
You know, another thing that what's a good thing that we can do is to get a buddy, exercising buddy, or a walking buddy, right?
Yes.
That would serve as an encouragement to do what you got to do.
It's so much easier than doing it alone. You know, even for things like basic activities, sometimes we prefer to do them with someone. And, you know, it's encouraging if we have someone who also is trying to work on one of the same goals that we are. And so just having that company is great. If you can find a friend, a family member that's willing to exercise, instead of, you know, going to the bar or going out somewhere that, you know, you could be spending your time doing something more healthy, it's great to do it with a partner.
Let's see. Also, be kind to yourself. Be patient. Right?
Very important. Yes, being patient is not easy. Definitely easier said than done. But it's about understanding that time goes by quickly and things change, and we don't always know what's coming. So it's easier and better, in my opinion, to be excited for what's in store for us rather than to be worried or anxious or nervous, because life is full of ups and downs, positives, negatives, scary moments, funny moments, weird moments, things that we understand and that we don't understand. And if we realize that life is about all of these instances, it makes it easier to look forward to whatever's coming next, and just remember that, you know, because nothing can be perfect and nothing's going to be all bad either. So it's a little bit better to look at it that way and say, maybe I should be excited for what's in store for my future and see how my life changes. And we can control certain things, and what we can't control, we're able to accept if we understand.
Absolutely. We're going to get DJ to get a song ready for us. Briefly, what's a good thing to do in terms of stress? And I know you're expert in stress. So what's some of the things that you think that's good for people who are suffering from anxiety that they could do?
You know, stress is something that everybody goes through no matter what.
Right.
And even the most proficient and experienced mental health providers deal with stress on a daily basis themselves. And, you know, stress is on a spectrum, because it can be in all different levels. And some people feel that if they're not stressed, then bad things can happen to them, because if they have to be worried and they have to have some sort of fear so that they're able to avoid certain consequences, you know. And some people feel that stress is so important because if there was no stress, then we'd be carefree, and you know, you wouldn't get up and go to work, or you wouldn't, you know, do important things that you had to do because you weren't worried about it. So some degree of worry and stress is important to keep us in check,
yes.
right? To keep us in line and make us, you know, continue doing the important things that we have to do in our lives. But when it goes overboard is when it becomes a mental health condition, and when it starts to interrupt our lives and change our regular patterns of behaviors is when we can notice that it's actually becoming a mental health concern rather than just a regular, you know, thing that we go through as human beings. Because remember, all of us are going to go through stress at times in our lives, and it's just about understanding the degree and the nature of that stress, and you know, the time that it's going to last for, because everything lasts for a certain amount of time and it changes for everybody. But if we're aware of that, it's all about, you know, being aware and being in control.
You know, like this afternoon we had a little, you know, I was supposed to meet you at 3:30 at Jamaica, and you know, you were texting me the train is running late, and
my gosh.
and I was telling myself I wasn't getting stressed out, to be honest with you. I said, you know what, I'm going to take it easy because I know what we got to talk about, so I can probably start the show in case of anything, you know. But thankfully that you made it on time to come here. So, but the good thing is, you know what, I try not to stress over these little things sometimes, the things that I can control, you know. And that's when I told you, listen, I'm going to go home, get ready, set up the studio, so by the time you get here, it might be good. So DJ, let's rock with another song, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio in New York. Let's go.
Hands in the air, go up. Everybody hands turn up. Put your hands in the air, go up. Let me see your hands go up. Hands in the air, go up.
Well, good afternoon again, and welcome to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. It's good to have Dr. Veronica Jackson. She said, great show, an excellent topic. Stress can cause increased heart disease, so we have to try not to stress. Absolutely. John Namot, thank you, my brother, for staying on. Michael Nalini Naidu, thank you very much. Congratulations to your son, Ken. Let's see, Lina, thank you very much. Sukdeo Mangal, thank you very much. Kenraj Sukram, thank you very much, my cousin from Parika, watching. Vimala Prasad, thank you very much. She said, great topic, need to empower people more. And, Vimala was supposed to be in my studio a long time for us to talk. We will talk more about Vimala after the show. Would be nice if you and Vimala could talk. She went to Florida now. So, yes, nice. Always encouraging. And you can always catch Vimala on Facebook Live, always giving us encouragement to go on. So let's talk about some, we people always like to say things that we don't know sometimes. And let's talk about a myth. Anxiety isn't a real illness. Is it true or false?
A lot of people believe that this is true, but it's actually a myth because anxiety is a real illness. Mm-hmm. People think that just because we experience it on a day-to-day basis, that it's something that can just be easily overcome. But the truth is that anxiety can become so bad that it can interrupt almost every aspect of our lives, and we can experience some major symptoms, as I mentioned earlier. Some of the real severe symptoms are tightness in the chest, racing heart, difficulty concentrating, fear of either losing control or even sometimes feeling like dying, and difficulty sleeping at night.
I had a patient, and his mother one time, she was very anxious. And she got me not scared, but I was kind of concerned. I didn't really realize what she was going through, but Lord, she was getting everybody concerned in the house. Another one, anxiety will go away on its own.
And that's what some people do believe as well, which is not necessarily true, because anxiety can definitely get worse over time, and it often requires us to understand how we think so that we can understand how we feel, because what therapy really involves is realizing that we are thinking in certain ways, which is why we are feeling certain ways. And that's why it's so important to recognize that it's not an easy process for us to change our own thinking when that's originally what the problem is. Because if we're thinking negatively, of course, it's going to affect how we're feeling. We'll be feeling negatively too.
Absolutely.
And so when one person thinks that anxiety will just go away on its own, it's really, really not true in most cases, because if the person doesn't fully address why they're feeling that way or why they're thinking certain ways, then even though sometimes they might feel a little bit better, it doesn't mean that their anxiety is fully gone or that they've been cured, quote unquote. It just means that they might be having a better day, but they haven't faced the actual reasons for why they're feeling anxious or stressed. And it's important to know that if it's not handled in the right way, it can become very, very serious until an actual medical condition.
Absolutely. And also, I want to say that, if you have anxiety, medication and counseling can help, right?
Definitely. Medication would be recommended by a psychiatrist. A psychologist won't be able to prescribe medication. It would have to be a psychiatrist or a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Another topic that it's actually interesting that's related to that is that some primary care doctors are prescribing mental health medications.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And people don't feel very good about that because they feel that, it has to be a mental health provider that is specialized in these disorders of the mind that can prescribe psychotropic medications. And although primary doctors have the ability to prescribe them, there's many people that feel that only specialists should do that.
Yeah, but with depression and so on, I think a regular general doctor can probably diagnose you. As you know, there is a form that you have now that they ask each patient when they come in. And I'm sure Dr. Jackson probably know about this form. When any patient come in, you ask them and you tick that form off, and you can diagnose them there if they have a mental disorder. Anxiety disorder are not common.
That's another myth as well. And anxiety disorders, they actually are common. Many people have them. And it's actually one of the most common mental health conditions that exist. For people that don't know, that's true.
You know, and the thing is that they feel all these signs and symptoms. Also, panic attacks can cause you to faint. Is it? That's...
It's actually a myth as well, because panic attacks can lead to a lot of different symptoms, and fainting is possible, but it's not like every panic attack is guaranteed or likely to result in fainting, because even though there is difficulty breathing when a person experiences a panic attack, and they do have a pounding heart or a racing heart beat, it's not likely that they will faint.
Another one which I know that people talk about, that if you're having, you're hyperventilating, you should get a brown paper bag and push your head in and you can breathe inside. What do you think about that?
But breathing into a paper bag is really not likely to prevent any type of hyperventilation. It is actually breathing techniques, like as we mentioned earlier, being in control of the amount of oxygen that's coming into our body and the flow of that oxygen, being mindful of every moment that we're breathing so we can take in more air and really allow ourselves to be in control of that. Because as soon as we're in control of that, then our awareness goes up as well. And those two really do go hand in hand. I think it's a very important thing to, if not anything else to take away from this, is that awareness and being in control go together. And the more aware we are of how we feel, why we feel, and what we think, that are all connected, is the more we can control those thoughts and those feelings.
Excellent. Social anxiety is the same as being shy. We say that people shy. What's your take?
Well, shy is definitely not the same as social anxiety, because you know, when we're in social situations, some of us are definitely better than others. Like, I know you're great at humor and you're great at making jokes, so you have that ability, whereas some people might feel very nervous or might feel to the point where they're having, you know, symptoms of almost experiencing a panic attack, you know, like how we mentioned, either sweating or feeling that they have trouble breathing in a situation where they're, you know, in front of people, or if they're speaking in public. People can experience an array of different emotions or symptoms, and that's why it's important to also remember that, you know, these are normal, but they're, you know, not going to define any particular person as long as we're able to control them.
Yes. Another one, it's obvious someone has anxiety disorder.
It can't always be obvious that someone has an anxiety disorder, because it's something that someone who is trained and specialized in that can really tell what the symptoms are that someone's going through and for the amount of time that they've been going through it. So it isn't fair for someone to, you know, assume that a person has a mental health condition, because when a person is labeled, they can become very offended, and it can become a very, very difficult thing to deal with, especially when they're given a label by a doctor or by, you know, a physician who is trained, because sometimes that doctor, you know, we're all human, so people can be misdiagnosed.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, you know, it can be very, very traumatic for a person to go through that and realize that a doctor misdiagnosed them and then they had to be re-diagnosed. There have been instances where people had to change medications because of that. And it's a whole different, you know, lifestyle change. And as it is, to feel like you're labeled or to feel like you've been, you know, put under a category of some sort is not easy. And then to find out that, you know, either it was incorrect, or maybe you have more than one disorder. Now you have comorbid. That's called, you know, when you have more than one disorder, it's called comorbid. So that can happen as well, and it could take a very huge toll on a person.
Yes. Also, medication is the only way to manage anxiety. We spoke about that earlier. So if you could just brush up on that.
Yes, it's definitely not the only way to manage anxiety. There are many, many ways to treat anxiety and stress, and medication is, like I said, should be one of the last resorts depending on the person's condition, because sometimes it's very necessary depending, on what the person has experienced or their medical conditions, but other times therapy can often help a person if it's regular and if it's consistent. So as long as we realize that medication isn't always the answer, we can really benefit from therapy.
Absolutely. Let me say hello to Natasha Ali. Thank you for your input. Lee Nai, thank you very much. Bibi Rahman, crying is a very good too. It helps. Thank you very much. Golin Singh, all the way from Guyana. Thank you very much for tuning in. John says panic attack can lead to suicide. Let's see. John said medicine Ritalin helps against anxiety. Lena says so true. It's all mind or your body. Also, let's see. We have John says traumatic experiences lead to anxiety. Absolutely. Michael Nalini Naidu said that's true. Talking to your loved one or friend helps, and it's so true. Always good to have someone. Let's see who else we have here. Dr. Jackson, Bibi Rahman, thank you guys. We're going to ask our DJ to play a song for us now, and then we'll come back and wrap up in 2 minutes. Let's go, DJ.
She want me be she Raja. She want me be she Raja. I bounce up with this young girl by me Aja. Now she only want me to be she Raja. I bounce up with this young girl by me Aja. Now she only want me to be she Raja. It was a celebration and she come out to life. And when she spot me, she walk and she whine. I bounce up with this young girl by me Aja. Now she only want me to be she Raja. Yes, she only want me to be she Raja. She want me be she Raja. She want me be she Raja.
Welcome back to the Ken Rampersaud Show. We got 1 minute more to tie things up, and so like I always tell my guests, they are the stars for this show, and all you guys. I am just here facilitating this, to help our people to understand things in layman's term. I am not here for all the rich people and those who are very brilliant, and what I'm saying. But it's good to have 1-2 brilliant people inside of the in my chat box, so they could share their views to with all of us. So how are you going to tie up this whole conversation?
Well, I'd definitely like to thank everybody who listened and who stayed for the whole time. I'm very honored and thankful for this opportunity, and very glad that I was able to talk about some of these topics. I think especially during this year, it's important because it's been such an eventful year, from the pandemic to Black Lives Matter, and now it's just so important for us all to recognize that whoever we have in our lives as our support systems, from friends and family, just to really cherish them and spend as much time as possible with them, really letting them know that we care about them and love them, because at any time anything can happen to anyone, and we never know. We can't predict the future, and that's part of why I said earlier that it's better to just be excited and look forward to our future, because since we can't control everything in life anyway, why should we stress or be negative? So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thanks to all our viewers too, because, for the past 2 weeks I've been hitting 7,000. And it's a good thing. Wow. It's good to have 7,000 views. So please don't forget to, when we finish, continue to share with your friends and family. It's good information I'm trying to bring to you guys that's helpful. I know sometimes it's not easy to get all this information. So I want you guys to know I appreciate all of you. And love all the support that you guys give me. Also, to Ash, I want to say thank you so much that you finally made it to come on the show. And I know
made it on time, which I'm notorious for being late. So luckily that worked out.
Yes. And I know, after reading your bio and so on, I know that there's so much topic that we could cover, me and you together with our experience, and that we work with people who are mentally ill, who are drug addicted and so much underserved and so on. And you're doing a good job, and we try our very best to make a difference in people's lives. So I hope that you feel so comfortable that you can come back again. Any topic you want to talk about, let me know, and we'll come back and we'll chit chat. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you very much for coming to the Ken Rampersaud Show here on Island Zone Radio. Again, to DJ Fest, happy birthday to you. And I want to say, yes, happy birthday, Ryan. Probably we should end with a birthday song for him. I also want to say thanks to DJ Bolt for always, he's the man behind the scene who always puts me on live Facebook. I don't know anything about computer. Again, to all of you guys, thank you very much. And Johnny, next week, I'm not sure what we are going to talk about, but definitely I'll try to bring something that's affecting us as a people and how we can make each other's lives a better one. Until then, next week, take it easy, Guy.
Thank you so much.
This is for the man DJ Fest, a man who's making a difference in so many of our lives. He gave me the opportunity to be on the radio. And thanks to Sheila Mangal for tuning in.
Your birthday comes once a year, that is why we're here. Everybody get
good night, DJ Arnold. Out of Canada. Good night, Sonia Andrew. My cousin from Connecticut, she lost her dad too with the COVID-19.
Whining on me, Ramaji. Shout it to the DJ. Jam the music, free up your mind.